Week 14 of fantasy football is officially here, and this is your final chance to go and secure your spot in that playoff dance. There's no next week. There's no week after. Week 14 is your final opportunity to go and make the playoffs for your fantasy football leagues. So I got you covered with 10 guys you can put into your lineup with confidence, whether you have Breece Hall, whether you have some of those Week 14 bye week teams, the Houston Texans, the Baltimore Ravens, the Washington Commanders. If you have players on those teams that are not available for you this week, I got you covered with guys that you can start with confidence. And in fact, in a couple of my own leagues with playoffs on the line, I'm doing that as well. But we start off with the wide receiver position, and we go straight to Rome Odunze of the Chicago Bears, going on the road to play the San Francisco 49ers. At the time I'm recording this, DJ Moore is questionable with a quad injury at this current point. Missed both Wednesday and Thursday with the injury, and if he were to miss this game, I think Rome Odunze has a smash spot opportunity against San Francisco. While it has been a season of ups and downs for Rome Odunze this year, if Moore doesn't go, he is in line for a ton of volume this week. The Bears have thrown the ball 39 times across their last 3 games since Shane Waldron was fired, and Caleb Williams himself has played a lot better football. 5 touchdowns, no interceptions in that stretch, 276 passing yards per game in that stretch. So, like I said, if DJ Moore is out for this week, Rome Odunze becomes a must-start wide receiver option. He's a top 30 overall wide receiver in my rankings in that circumstance, and I do think that, again, if DJ Moore is out for this game, Rome Odunze is a must-start lineup option this week. Next up at number 2, we have another rookie wide receiver with Keon Coleman of the Buffalo Bills, traveling on the road to play the Los Angeles Rams this week. Keon Coleman coming back from a wrist injury that's held him out this last month. And prior to the injury, he was actually playing some of his best ball of the year. Unfortunate that he was inhibited by that wrist injury, but he is coming back to a smash spot against LA. The LA Rams are currently one of the more advantageous matchups, top 10 matchups for wide receivers in fantasy this year. And Buffalo is going to be implied for over 27 points in this game. With Keon Coleman, assuming he's fully healthy, ready to go for Sunday, he will be a top 36 overall wide receiver in my rankings. A little bit volatile because obviously we know Khalil Shakir, Amari Cooper are going to have roles on this team, but I do think given the upside of this offense, given the connection he showed with Josh Allen prior to the injury, if Keon Coleman's ready to go, like I said, top 36 level wide receiver in my rankings and a guy that has a ton of upside in this game slate. And then the final wide receiver is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine of the Tennessee Titans, going to play the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. And he is the hottest scoring wide receiver in fantasy football so far. In his last 8 games, 8 touchdowns scored from scrimmage. And he's looked really good and has another cake matchup against this Jacksonville Jaguars secondary. And with Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, since he became a full-time player after the DeAndre Hopkins deal, it's clear he developed a big rapport with Will Levis. Since Will Levis has come back from injury, we've seen Nick Westbrook-Ikhine average 15 PPR points per game and 22 of his 38 seasonal targets being commanded. So with Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, he's in that full-time role. He's the number 2 option in the passing game after Calvin Ridley. And as I'll talk about with Will Levis later in the video, I think this entire passing offense could be in store for a career day. But moving on to the running back position, we go to Isaac Guerendo of the San Francisco 49ers. He was obviously the big winner of the recent week of news out in San Francisco. Both Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason being added to season-ending IR, effectively ending their years. And with Isaac Guerendo, this is a guy I loved in the NFL draft. Top 10 graded running back in my grading scale. He's got that size, 220 plus pounds, 4.33 speed at the combine. And as you see here from Jared Smola, he actually does have a receiving profile coming out of college. 39 catches across his last 2 college seasons, 62% of the routes and 15% of the targets once Mason exited in the second quarter in week 8. So with Isaac Guerendo, I think this is a very talented player. He's obviously in a great run scheme with Kyle Shanahan, and with both Jordan Mason and Christian McCaffrey on the mend, he ranks as a top 20 running back for me. Sure, is there some risk that, Patrick Taylor can get worked in? Absolutely, and I'm baking that in with the top 20 type of projection, but if he has this backfield as a 70 plus, 75 plus % opportunity share guy, I think Guerendo has the opportunity to be a top 12 to 15 running back moving forward. Next up is Jaylen Warren, running back of the Pittsburgh Steelers, going to play the Cleveland Browns this week at home. And while he did see an overall decrease in touches this past week, he garnered 13 plus in the 3 games prior, and he's gotten good receiving usage since coming out of the bye week. Yes, of course, Najee Harris, main between the tackles runner. I get that for this Pittsburgh team. However, Cleveland is a big-time pass funnel defense, and with the way Russell Wilson has been playing as of late, I really trust the Steelers' offensive projection. Jaylen Warren is the first of 3 Steelers I'll talk about on this video, and I do think he has a ton of upside in the role he's operating. third down back, long down and distance back. For a team that's been throwing the ball extremely well since Russ took over, I have him currently as my RB25 on the week. And I do think if you're in a pinch, full PPR league, you need to throw Jaylen Warren at that RB2 spot. Maybe you're missing Breece Hall. I think he can get you over the top 10 plus, 12 plus PPR points this week. And then the final running back is Rachaad White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. Yes, he has seen a decrease in touches since the team's bye week, but against a top 3 matchup against opposing running backs that Vegas represents, along with how efficient Rachaad White's been of late, I really do feel like he has the opportunity to get you into that playoff dance. Bucky Irving, yes, he did return to practice this week. It is expected he's going to play in this game, but he was DMP on Wednesday and Thursday, only practiced it in limited capacity on Friday, and he is still dealing with those hip and back injuries that really limited him in the second half of that game last week. If Bucky Irving's banged up at all, maybe he misses a drive, 2 drives in this game. Rachaad White, like I said, has been playing his most efficient football as of late. We're looking at a guy that's averaged 4.57 yards per carry. We know what he's able to do in the receiving game. And like I said, if Bucky Irving misses a series, maybe doesn't get his full allotment of snaps like he's seen these last 2 weeks, Rachaad White has a big time implied upside in this game. And of course, in the circumstance that Bucky Irving re-aggravates that injury, maybe misses the rest of the game, Rachaad White has top 10 level implied upside this week. But closing this video off at the onesie positions, we'll start off with Will Levis, quarterback of the Tennessee Titans, going to play the Jacksonville Jaguars. I already talked about his number 2 wide receiver with Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, but Will Levis himself has quietly played some very efficient football since coming back from injury. 7 touchdowns, only 3 turnovers in his last 4 starts. And Jacksonville is a team that's flat out ready to give up. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, obviously, horrible concussion last week, hopefully for a speedy recovery on his own right. He was placed on IR. The Jaguars at this point are currently the favorites to get the first overall pick. The Jaguars defense has been a mess all year, and I don't think they're going to be even more motivated after losing their starting quarterback in the manner they did last week. I think Will Levis, again, very efficient football across this last month of the year, 21.5 implied Titans points in this game, and we actually have seen him run the ball a little bit. Again, he hasn't been totally effective, but in the 3 games prior to last, when it was a blowout against Washington, didn't really need him to run the football. In those previous 3 games, he actually had 5+ rushing attempts in each of those starts. So with Will Levis, sneaky rushing upside, but what you're potentially getting here is a big-time boom week in the passing game. The streaming quarterback I like this week, the second of 3 Steelers I'll talk about on this video, we have Russell Wilson of the Pittsburgh Steelers going up, of course, like I mentioned, with Warren against the Cleveland Browns, and I'm all in on this passing attack. Since Russell Wilson has taken over, he's played some very efficient football for the Steelers offense. Since Russell Wilson's taken over, he's played some very efficient football as of late. 17.8 points per game since taking over, 2 separate 20+ point games. And like I said, I really do think the Steelers offense can exploit this Cleveland back end. Yes, you look at his point total a couple weeks ago when they played Cleveland. I think we have to take that with a grain of salt. That game was really marred by weather, and he was still very efficient. Completed 75% of his passes, only had to throw the ball 28 times, of course, like I mentioned, with the weather in hand. But like we saw last week against Cincinnati, we know the spike weeks are capable. Over 400+ passing yards last week, similar advantageous matchup against Cleveland this week. And with the way his overall pass catchers have been playing as of late, really do trust Russell Wilson to cook and be a top 12 to 15 quarterback in the rankings this week. And I may as well attach that to his number 1 tight end here, my number 1 streaming tight end. Technically, I have Ferguson, who I'll talk about in the second ranked higher, but I really do love Pat Freiermuth this week. Really just going to tail off the Russell Wilson argument. With Pat Freiermuth, he's quietly played some very good football since the bye week. Tight end 13 in PPR points per game in that stretch, over 10 PPR points per game. With the Steelers offense, they're implied for over 25 points at home. And after that 44-point showing against Cincinnati, they are completely in rhythm as of now. Pat Freiermuth, of course, like I was talking about, playing his best ball of the season. And like I said, with how the Steelers offense has been playing, with how this passing offense has been functioning, I truly trust Pat Freiermuth develop into that number 2 target in this offense behind George Pickens. And then the final name of this video, we have Jake Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, if you drafted Jake Ferguson, you were used middle portion of the year, set it and forget it type of guy. But coming off of the injury, people might be questioning, okay, do I put him back in my lineup? Do I go to an alternative option? I think you have Jake Ferguson. You have to put him into your lineup this week because when we're looking at this overall game environment, it truly points to a potential Jake Ferguson boom week. Cincinnati is a top 8 matchup for opposing tight ends this year, and this is the single highest over-under of the week. The Cowboys have missed their number 2 pass catcher, which is exactly what Jake Ferguson was earlier in this year. And if you exclude the 2 games he left early, he was averaging 10.2 PPR points per game on 0 touchdowns on the year. Like I mentioned with Cincy, very exploitable defense, 44 points allowed against the Steelers last week. And I do think this is the potential opportunity where Jake Ferguson scores his first touchdown of the year. 3rd highest projected pace of the week. I think that game on Monday Night Football shoots out. But either way, if you guys enjoyed, make sure you leave a like down below. If you guys want access to all of our rankings in the playoff weeks, there's one of two ways to get them right now. First way is Underdog Fantasy. If you guys use promo code FSC, sign up and first deposit at least $10. You make one play on the site, you'll get access to all of our weekly rankings throughout the playoff push. And the other way is by over on flockfantasy.com. If you guys use promo code FSC, you will get 30% off any site-wide package as well as a 7-day free trial on the site. But with that being said, peace out. See you guys tomorrow for the wide receiver rankings. Let's eat these W's and clinch our playoff spots.